We're here today at Climate Week, New York City at the Nest Summit, and I'm so pleased to be joined today with Tjada McKenna, the Chief Executive Officer at Mercy Corps. Thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I would want to know more about the work that you do at Mercy Corps.
Yes, Mercy Corps, we work in communities affected by climate, conflict, and poverty. We are a team of humanitarians, so we do emergency relief work, humanitarian work, as well as kind of longer term development work in over 40 countries around the world, like Africa, Middle East, Latin America. And our primary areas are food, water, economic opportunities, and peace and conflict avoidance.
Absolutely.
But climate, we're working in the most climate affected countries, so climate is really at the heart of everything we're doing to helping communities adapt, cope, and thrive with the changes.
Yeah. And you know, we've been seeing a lot of influx of climate disasters hitting global south countries. I mean, we recently talked about Libya, around 3,000 plus lives were lost, and also thousands of people are also considered lost. How do we really bridge the gap between international organizations that are working to end poverty,
Right.
but making the connection towards climate? Because I think there's sometimes a bit of a disconnect with other organizations and issues to really relate to the general audience that climate is affecting
No,
migration.
that's exactly right. And it's all intertwined,
Yeah.
right? Climate, poverty, conflict, all those things, because the people that are affected the most by climate change, the most negatively, are the people that did the least to contribute to it.
Yeah.
And if you think about how that hits poor people in terms of where they live in substandard housing, or maybe areas that are more prone to it, then they don't have the means to cope with it, and it just drives them deeper and deeper into poverty. And then in situations where you have countries, lower income countries, or governments that are just unable to really help people through climate, the conditions for conflict become rife, because then like bad actors can come in as the saviors.
Yeah.
So, and you're competing for resources. So if you're not taking climate into the work, we're all about building resilient communities.
Yeah.
And that climate is in the center of that right now.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things that you said about building peace and also working with different organizations, being a global organization, what is a unique and specific approach to the climate crisis when building out these programs with communities and those who are entering those communities?
Yeah, so we look at everything, we call it our resilience framework. So there are three key elements to that. One is providing sustainable energy sources for people, because energy and poverty are so intertwined. But the second is what we call anticipatory action. So for instance, like you can see where some crops are having difficulty growing because of climate, or if you see certain areas are just getting more and more hit by certain storms, like anticipating that and helping people to adapt or figure out what to do. And the third is just that ability to rapidly respond when a climate disaster hits, and to kind of help people through it.
Absolutely, and there's been a lot of studies that have shown that many people around the world are not prepared for a climate disaster due to poor infrastructure or access to resources. And as we've been witnessing more of these climate-related events, I think there's been a general consensus with different parties to promote multilateralism, which is working with these different governments, private sectors, and other leaders. So how do you think we should all come together to really talk about this issue, to really push more systemic policies? Because often at times nonprofit organizations are often the ones bearing the biggest brunt of these resources.
I think the climate conversation, a lot of the bigger climate conversation has really focused a lot around mitigation and science, and like really high-minded commitments around carbon and other things. But at the base of it, the people affected day by day, it's about people, and the adaptation side is so important in helping communities to adapt, to know what's happening because of climate, to know that this is going to be recurring. And a lot of the resources that governments and private sector have put in have been around kind of cool science and mitigation, and we really need a lot more towards the adaptation and just helping communities, especially those who are the most vulnerable, be able to survive and even thrive in these conditions, because this is the new normal.
Yeah, and we've seen recent developments with that COP28, how climate adaptation is on the increase, to be able to pressure global north governments to really expend more money into investing to global south technologies, or also community-led initiatives that are being on there. And some exciting news that I've been learning recently about is that Mercy Corps is reaching a new climate campaign.
Yes.
Can you please talk about this exciting campaign that's being launched?
So we are launching a climate campaign committed to raise $250 million over the next few years with partners, with governments, with donors, with private companies, specifically focused on adaptation and helping to build resilient communities in the face of climate change. And the work that we are encouraging people to get behind are the three things I mentioned earlier: the sustainable energy access, the anticipatory actions, like really weaving climate into everything that you do to make sure that you're promoting sustainable development that takes into account people's changing environments, and that rapid response that is just like we see in Libya, Morocco. Like, it's so necessary, and it's just really tough for people sometimes to anticipate that and to know how to support people in those times.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on the
you.
new initiative. And how can the general citizen contribute to helping Mercy Corps?
Yeah. Well, obviously, like, climate is at the center of what we do. So if they want to learn more or to give, it's www.mercycorps. That's MERCYCORPS.org. Also, if you're with a company or have others, like, ask them how they're responding to help people adapt. Like, pay attention to the forgotten crises. Look on our websites to see where, like, people think the Horn of Africa and the drought they have there, the earthquake that hit Turkey, like northern Syria was very much affected by that. So really encourage people to make sure that we focus on things that aren't on the front page of the news all the time, because this shouldn't become normal. I worry sometimes that people become immune to the suffering because they see so much and
so
it
much
just
doom and
passes
gloom
by.
being perpetuated.
But there are opportunities still for people to thrive. For people should be able to survive these things, and they should be able to adapt to thrive, and that's what we're committed to doing.
Yeah, and I think the average citizen can commit to themselves to, yes, reading about those news, but also finding solutions, demanding those solutions, but also working together with organizations like Mercy Corps that is leading those fights. So thank you so much again for being here.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work that you guys do, and thank you to all for what you do in your individual lives to make the planet a better place.